We've got the second college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. Before we get to those, though, I'm going to give you my top 25 rankings for week 12. So yesterday I did a video where I gave you a projection of what I think the playoff rankings are going to look like tonight. You can go back and watch that video. Basically, laid it all out on how the committee, or how I think the committee is going to rank these teams. But this top 25 is going to be a different. I did this last week, started this last week. We're going to rank the teams just simply based on who I think would win if the teams played this weekend on a neutral field and they played at their best. That's how I'm ranking the teams, because it doesn't make sense really to do a resume ranking, because that's going to be very similar to the playoff projection. So this is more, I guess, of a power ranking. But again, I just want to do something different now that we've got the playoff rankings coming out. And again, there will be plenty of debate on this, I'm sure. Some of these selections will probably surprise you. I am going to have a little bit of a different schedule this week, so I will not be doing a reaction video tonight after the rankings come out, because they're going to be out later tonight. I just don't want to do a video that late. So I'm holding my playoff eliminator video until tomorrow. I'm going to post that tomorrow. I normally post it on Tuesday. But I wanted to wait because for a couple of reasons. One is because where the teams are ranked this week could have an impact. Like if Missouri's in the 20s, even though they have 2 losses, and could finish 10-2, like I'm probably going to eliminate them, because there's no way they're going to move up that much. So things like that, we could have the playoff picture could look a little bit different depending on what those rankings look like. So I'm going to do like a quick reaction to the rankings tonight on that playoff eliminator video tomorrow. So make sure you watch out for that. But let's get into the top 25. We're going to start at the top. I thought that made more sense because we're kind of saying this team could beat that team or whatever. So we start with Oregon and Ohio State at the top. And again, I said this last week. If a team has one fewer loss and beat the other team head-to-head, I can't really, I would pick Ohio State if they played this weekend on a neutral field. I think it'd be a great game. I could see Oregon winning that game, but again, if I had to pick, I'd pick Ohio State. But the fact that they have 1 loss, Oregon has 0 losses, they played head-to-head, that's kind of the rule where that's the one rule I have to where I'm not just going to rank these teams based off of who I think would win. So Oregon at 1, then Ohio State. I think Texas is the next best team. The way when they're playing at their best, they haven't looked quite the same since Quinn Ewers came back from that injury. He hasn't looked quite the same, I should say. But you still see flashes, and you still see the creativity on offense. This is a tough offense to stop if the quarterback, the quarterback doesn't even have to be elite, but when the quarterback is elite, you're just not going to stop this Texas offense. And so that's what they can get to, and they can win a national championship if Quinn Ewers is elite down the stretch. Their defense has been solid this year. The run game at times has been good. It's kind of been inconsistent, but they've got enough weapons on offense. I don't think that's going to be the issue there. If the quarterback plays really, really well, Texas can win a national championship. I've got Alabama up to number 4. And again, these are not based off of resume. I don't even think Texas should be in the top 5 based on resume, but I do think they're that good. Alabama, boy, the way they've looked the last couple of games, I know Missouri, that was kind of a weird game. Quarterback got injured, but the way they looked against LSU, Jalen Milroe continues. And this is what I said in the preseason, if Kalen DeBoer tries to turn Jalen Milroe into a pocket passer and tries to, run the same type of offense that he ran at Washington, that's not going to work. But when you take advantage of him as a runner like they did so much against LSU, this offense is very tough to stop. The defense has been playing well all year. I think Alabama would beat all the other teams except for these top 3. And then Ole Miss at number 5. They're playing really good football now. We saw what they did against Georgia. So I think Ole Miss would beat almost anyone in the country if they played this week. Let's go now to 6 through 10. I've got Georgia at 6. I know they've had their issues, but again, you look at who they've lost to, Alabama and Ole Miss, the teams I have ahead of them, I think they would beat everyone else. I was really looking at Indiana because I think Indiana's a good football team, but do we really think that Indiana would beat Georgia? Like that matchup, just the athleticism, the size in the trenches. The depth of this Georgia team. I feel like Georgia would win that game. I would pick Georgia to win that game. I know Vegas would have Georgia favored. So I had to put Georgia at 6, but then Indiana. I think Indiana would beat Notre Dame and Tennessee and Penn State. This is a very good football team, and I think, assuming they get in the playoff, I think they may win a playoff game. I think they're that good. Kurt Cignetti's a great coach. Bringing Curtis Rourke at quarterback, who has been very good. I talked about them, I know, preseason. I said this could be a surprise team. I didn't think it would be this big of a surprise. I didn't think they would be this good. And also, some of their opponents that they played this year have been worse than we expected. But still, Indiana is a very good team. Notre Dame at number 8. They've been quietly just winning. Tennessee, they get their chance against Georgia. So we're going to find out just how good the Vols really are. Penn State, number 10. I think it's a good team, but I wouldn't pick them to beat these teams ahead of them. I think Indiana would beat Penn State. I think Tennessee would beat Penn State. Still, it's a good team. It's a very solid team, but I don't think Penn State's a top 5 team. All right, let's move on now to 11 through 15. So this one's going to surprise people, I'm sure. South Carolina, number 11. They're playing really good football. Lenora Sellers continues to get better at quarterback. The offense continues to get better. The defense is really good. They've got one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. I know they've got the 3 losses, but again, how they're playing right now, like if they played LSU again, I'd take South Carolina in that game. And really, there were some calls that went against them in that game that really kept them from really winning that game. I mean, you could very easily make the argument that South Carolina was the better team in that game. And their other 2 losses for Alabama and Ole Miss, so I've got those teams up ahead of them. I think they would beat Miami and Texas. They just beat Texas A&M. I think they'd beat BYU and SMU. So I've got them at 11. Miami at 12. If they're playing at their best, maybe they should be a little bit higher, but I don't know. I mean, Miami's a tough one to figure out. I don't know how good this team really is. I think there's a chance if they win out, they get to the playoff and they get embarrassed. I think that's very possible. But Cam Ward's really good when he's not turning the ball over. Miami's an interesting team for sure. Texas A&M, a solid football team this year. I got them at 13. BYU and SMU at 14 and 15. Again, these are good teams, but I just don't see either one of them playing, or not playing, but I don't see either one of them beating a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ole Miss or an Ohio State or even a Penn State. I just don't see them winning those games. So I've got them at 14 and 15. Do they deserve to be ranked higher? Yes, based off of their resume and what they've done this season, they deserve to be ranked higher. And if I was doing like a playoff ranking, I would have them ranked higher. I talked about that many times, how BYU and SMU are being underrated in the playoff rankings. But if you really ask me, how good do I think these teams are? Do I think they'd beat these other teams ahead of them? No, I think 14, 15 is probably about where they are in terms of just how good these teams are. So, we complain about the playoff rankings, not following the criteria, not looking at the resume, but at the same time, I kind of agree with some of how they've ranked the teams in terms of just how good the teams are. But we don't know, and that's the thing. We're just guessing. We haven't seen BYU and SMU play Ole Miss or Alabama or any of those teams. So I think they should get the chance. That's a different argument. But where do I think they should be ranked in terms of how good they are? Again, I think 14 or 15 is probably a good spot. Boise State at 16. It's a solid football team. Louisville at 17. Clemson, I think they just had a bad game against Louisville. I don't think they're really that bad. They bounced back against Virginia Tech, played really well in the second half of that game. LSU at 19. If they're not playing a running quarterback, they might be top 10. But if you're playing a running quarterback, this LSU team, their defense they cannot figure that out. And we saw that when Marcel Reed came in the game with Texas A&M. We saw it against Jalen Milroe. I don't know why they can't seem to figure that out. But otherwise, this team's pretty good. Garrett Nussmeier's been making some mistakes in some critical moments as well. So I don't think they're a great team, but I still think they're a solid team. Colorado at 20. They've been finding ways to win these games. They've looked really good. I think they might win the Big 12. I really do. Colorado's been very, very solid here down the stretch. Again, I said this the other day. I don't think the Big 12 is very good. I don't think there are any great teams in the Big 12. But there are some solid teams. Again, BYU, Colorado. We'll continue on here. Kansas State, number 22. They have not played great as of late. I still think that they have potential to be a good team. I got them at 22. Washington State at 21. They just continue to win. Missouri at 23. If Brady Cook is healthy, if he's not healthy, I don't think this is a top 25 team. So you have to kind of look at that from that perspective. Arizona State's a team that I know they haven't really beaten anyone, but I've watched them several times this year. I just think it's a good football team. I really do. And then West Virginia. So I do have a 4-loss team in here because they've looked a little bit different with Nico Markel at quarterback. He's given them a boost. He's played pretty well. Their run game is strong. Their defense is solid. This is a team that I think has won 2 or 3 games in a row. So, yeah, I think if West Virginia played Vanderbilt, or, I don't even know what other teams you might consider, Illinois, Iowa State, Pitt, and 2 loss teams. I think West Virginia will win those games if they played this week. So, yeah, West Virginia, my number 25 team, a 4-loss team. But I could not find a 2-loss or a 3-loss team that I thought would beat West Virginia. So at the end of the day, that's why they're at 25. I'm sure some of you will not agree with that, but that's just how I see it. So again, these rankings are totally based off of my opinion. I'm not really going to debate any of these rankings because, again, it's just my opinion, but would love to hear your thoughts and just like how would you rank the teams just based off of how good you think they are, not looking at the resume. I would love to get your rankings, so leave those for me down in the comments below.